camera is on.
Welcome to Nights at the Round Table, a round table discussion on speculative fiction books and film.
Okay, good day everybody. Welcome to the Nights of the Round Table. For our next episode, we will be talking about the latest release of Wonder Woman. And we have Jaggy Sue here on my right and Lindsay on the left. And we'll start with first impressions. Lindsay.
First impressions. I really liked it. I thought it was a breath of fresh air in especially the DC part of their superhero movies, but also Marvel lately and everything. I just felt it was very nice and different. And yeah, we'll get into why later probably.
I think I'll echo the sentiments. I really enjoyed this movie. It was fun and kick-ass, and my God, Gal Gadot, you are amazing. You know.
Yeah, I actually love this movie. Much probably for similar reasons, but maybe not. But up to that point, Wonder Woman to me was always Linda Carter. And I think maybe she has been somewhat supplanted. Not completely, but somewhat. And we'll carry on. Lindsay.
Awesome. Well, the first thing I wanted to bring up was having a female director for this movie, and how I found, while I was watching, I didn't really realize why things were looking so different and so fresh and new. And then afterwards, I was reading an article on Tumblr, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, it's different. It's that female gaze. It's not specifically being perhaps even like sexualized or anything, but just having that sort of a different perspective on the shots and the action sequences that was so unique. And I further realized how different it was when I saw the trailer for the Justice League movie, the new one, and seeing Gal Gadot being directed by a male person again, and then realizing, wow, yeah, no, it was completely different type of like shots, and how they like sort of focused on posing more, and just that aspect. I was like, okay, yeah, no, there's a very big difference for me anyways that I found in it.
Yeah, I felt this movie was a lot more realistic. You didn't have the crazy nonsensical posing that you get in a lot of superhero movies that, you know, over-sexualize characters. And it was just, you felt like you knew this person. You felt like you could talk with her, and yes, this is what I have set out to do, is to save the world, you know, and stop the war and stop Ares. And I thought it was a really, you know, fresh take. But I don't come from much in terms of comic books or anything, so keep that in mind when we're going through this review. Is I haven't read the comic books, I haven't read or watched like the original episodes or anything. I just watched this because my family wanted to go and have like a girls' night out, so that's what we did. Like, we're gonna watch this kick-ass movie, and I know Gal Gadot from the Fast and Furious series, so...
Yeah. Cinematography on this was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just gorgeous the way they went through it and so forth. Now, whether that was the director or if that was just those shots that they took, they were really good.
And very gritty, too. One of the interesting things about this movie is, because we saw it sort of as a family, my grandmother was sitting right next to me, and she's about 80 years old, and seeing some of her reactions to the wartime, and like the reaction for when you see the photos, and when you see the horribleness of, you know, the gases, you know, used by Dr. Poison, like it, and I kept looking at her like, is she okay? Like, you know, but it put things into perspective of how real and how impactful this movie is.
Yeah, because I find sometimes those sort of things there in other superhero movies are sort of sensationalized.
They are, yeah.
You know, and, you know, these brilliant plans to gas, you know, the entire city seems to be more sensationalized than really what they are. And that's pretty much a horror.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, kind of interesting, you know, you sit there and you watch through the movie, you know, and you see young Diana growing up and all that, and then when she leaves, she's really this sort of naive, idealistic young lady who goes out into the world and has her eyes opened.
Yeah, I really loved that, she still believed in this fairy tale idea of what, is going to happen and what she is going to do, and then she goes out into the real world and sees how horrible things can be, and she effectively grows up,
And finding out that there isn't necessarily this all evil power that is controlling, and get rid of that, and everything's rainbows and happiness. And
Puppy dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a little bit more to it than that. And I felt that they also explored that in the campfire scene with the chief character and him saying, like, even the good guys do awful things. And I was like, thank you for bringing that out. Like, we need to be called out on that. So I really, really appreciated that they were brave enough to do that, and brave enough to show that the good guys aren't necessarily the good guys and the bad guys aren't necessarily bad guys. Especially in something as complex as a world war.
Yeah, sorry. And on that, there is like the sort of the end scene there, or not the really end scene, not just after Ares is defeated. You see the smuggler, I can't remember his character, what his name was, the Native American, hugging one of the German characters at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like the war is over, now let's be friends, or, at least we're not enemies anymore.
Yeah.
Type of message.
Yeah. And I have to say that I also really appreciated some of the fight scenes too. Like there's right at the beginning when there's that bit of an attack on the paradise, right, where all the Amazons are. There's the one chick that just goes thunk to the side and nails the guy, and I'm like, that was amazing. Like I had a really fun time with a lot of the combat sequences in this movie.
Absolutely, all like the slow motion use was really, really well done, and the costuming was phenomenal, because they actually went back and looked at Roman armor or Viking armor, and they actually went back and tried to find real resources, real references to pull from, and making sure that it was functional and it wasn't just pretty looking, that actually made sense with their sort of era and time period that
except for one
from.
small scene.
Which one?
That was after that one scene where they were talking about, Ares was talking about being defeated, right? And they showed him crashing to the earth, and he looks up and he's got this panhandle mustache on. I somehow don't picture a Greek god with this panhandle mustache. In the time period he was actually in, like in World War I. London, it made sense, and even throughout, probably even the fight scene towards the end. But that one scene, which he was supposedly in Greece, just what the heck were they thinking? They obviously couldn't make the guy shave it off, obviously.
I guess, yeah.
But just sort of like.
I also really liked for the costuming, when they're trying on the different outfits so that she doesn't stand out, and she's like practicing like kicks, and the horse going, you hear the rip. Oh,
and the idea that the pair of glasses will make her the most unbeautiful woman there.
And they called it out. They called it out. And I was like, thank you. As someone who wears glasses, I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. There's so many moments. Like I also really appreciated like a lot of the comedic elements that were a little more at the front of the movie, especially the boat scene. Just, oh my god.
You wouldn't have enjoyed those books.
Fine, I will sleep with you. It's just perfect. Oh my god.
It's definitely draws away from at least the recent trend of DC movies, where it's all just dark.
Yeah.
One lighthearted moment that they can put in the trailer to be like, yeah, we're not all dark. But this one was definitely brought more of the
actually filmed dark, which is nice. You can see what's going on.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yes.
Although the boat, I have to say, I did watch a video, a wonderful YouTube video, Matt Pat film series, about how the boat wouldn't be able to travel that far in a single day. It would take about 4 months for it to travel based on the plane Steve was flying at that time period. We'd be able to go in like a 3-hour radius from Turkey. So the island would probably be around like yeah, in a certain area in the Mediterranean. So yeah, it'd be a 4-month journey in that boat to get to London. So
Even catching a ride.
Oh my goodness.
They would have had to catch a lot of rides.
a lot of rides.
Yeah. The time sequencing seems a bit off, right? You know, so because you don't really get that feel, and you could probably sort of say, yeah, while they're on the Mascara in that area there probably time is different than for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Possibly. Or just time just passes differently, or they age differently, obviously. But you don't really have that time period from when Diana's a girl till she leaves the island and so forth. But obviously she doesn't age the same because, you know, we're stuck back in the World War I area, and movie actually started in current days, right? Yeah. So she's obviously not aging the same way as the rest of humanity.
Well, she is made
God.
from clay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Babies aren't made the same way, or made out of clay out here. Yeah.
Oh, that's too good.
Another thing I wanted to bring up was the character of Charlie, the sniper. And I really loved how they sort of acknowledged, without saying, because at that time they wouldn't know about PTSD, but that he has PTSD and he can't shoot anymore. And so he felt like his value wasn't there, and she was able to, without calling him out on it or saying like, oh, you're no use, like, why aren't you doing this, like, come on, let's go, pull your weight. She sort of just said, no, who else would sing for us? And saying sort of like, you still have value to our group, you are morale, you have a part of this that will help us as a whole. Even though it's not the part maybe you thought you'd be able to play or that you want to play, there's still something there that is important to us, which I really appreciated, for sure, being able to sort of address that aspect of it at a time when they didn't.
You see later on where it helps out, where he's actually using the scope for the rifle anyways for just sort of scouting.
Yeah.
As opposed to, before he was just sort of he didn't want to even look through the scope of the rifle.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Something that amused me when I watched the movie in theaters was maybe something that wasn't necessarily intentionally funny, but I thought it more funny just because I've done this. When after she's now in the new outfit and she's got the shield and she's holding the sword and she's looking at this revolving door and she's like, no, you go. And then she like runs out. I'm like, I have so done this on multiple occasions.
I was literally waiting for her to come back through. I watched it last night for the 4th time and I was still expecting her to walk right around through.
Yeah. It's too good.
Because that's usually the comic thing that they try to put in all the time, right? But you had to think, well, she obviously must have gone through the revolving door at least once.
Oh, that's true. I didn't really think about that. But
the thing is they never showed that until the end, or until when she was leaving, so who knows. But, and then trying to carry the sword all over the place.
Yes. And she's like, no, you can't. You will guard this with your life. And I'm like, I love this. This is too much fun. I love it.
And I loved that secretary.
Yeah,
yes.
Ethel Candy, I think it was.
Possibly, yeah. No, she was fantastic. I had such a great time with her.
Yeah. I like that she, at the end, too, like, she's like, no, I'm going to be a part of this group. I'm the leader, basically. I'm going to organize things. I'm going to tell you where to go. And they're like, wait, yeah, okay. So we did have sort of that reverse roles going on, where we had Diana save Steve a couple of times, but we also had Steve, instead of just being helpless and like, save me, he was able to be a hero as well, and do his own fighting and hold his own with Diana, which was great to see. The scene in the alleyway when they first get to London, and we have the gangsters, I guess, approach with their guns and everything, and then Diana saves or blocks one of the bullets with her wrist bracers. It's actually sort of mirrors or reflects the original Superman with Christopher Reeves and how he saves Lois in the same manner. Before fainting dramatically, because he's Clark Kent, of course. Which Diana doesn't do. But
yeah. And Steve does, say to Diana, like, I can save the day, you can save the world, and he takes the plane full of all of that gas and decides he's going to take it up as far as he can, because it's on a timer, of course, and he takes it as far away from the front as he can to save as many lives as he can.
Pulls a Steve Rogers. You know, 2 Chris's playing 2 Steves, 2 planes.
And we're going into our fangirling necessarily.
And it makes that ending, that final scene, or one of the final scenes where she is looking at the board after the war is done. And normally people will just look, these are the people that served, and you don't necessarily have an attachment, but you see the look on her face of how he was much more important. Like, you know now the backstory behind this particular character and the sacrifice that he made to save as many people as he could from that. And so it gives, an impression that's different than just, oh, these are just nameless faces on a wall kind of deal. It gives that bit more realism to the story.
Yeah. And in fact, they are sort of they sort of work as a team pretty much probably from the trench scene onwards.
Yeah.
You have your part, I have my part type of deal. And, whether we accept it or not, it's another story, because there were points I don't think she quite accepted it at the end there, until, when he first said, hey, I have to go, and she calls back and calls him and, tries to get him to stay behind. And, he doesn't. He just carries on and does what he needs to do, and she realizes that's what he had to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I also like that he learns from her and from her people as well. So he saw in that first beach fight 2 of the women warriors using a shield to throw one up, and then later on he's like, and shield, like, we're gonna do the thing.
Yes, that was brilliant.
The funny thing is, until last night when I watched this, I never noticed the beach shield scene.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, really?
That's the first time I noticed it in the 4 viewings I looked at. I've seen this. That's the first time I noticed that, and where that came from. It just didn't dawn on me at the time. Like, okay, that's interesting, but where did he come up with that idea, and why did she click into that? Until I saw the beach scene now.
I mean, it was used by Steve Rogers and Natasha in the Avengers, but it's still an awesome
This is
move.
great. The similarities and stupid.
There's only so many moves you can do with a shield, I guess.
True. Very true.
Yeah, so, if you carry on her development, she leaves the island sort of very naive, very innocent, shall we say, and for the longest time there, she's basically following Steve's lead, right? Until the trench, and she decides, I've had enough of this.
We're going to go for it.
We're going to save everyone.
We're going to save everyone. And I think that's probably the first time she started to, I guess, embrace her, I guess, godhood, shall we say, or her, at least the Wonder Woman aspect of her character, and so forth. And from there, I think Steve sees her almost more as an equal than at that point.
And you get the sense of that equality throughout the movie. It's not just, no, we're going to do it this way.
Yeah. Up until that point, though, he was sort of treating her as, I guess, he would treat any woman at that time in that era.
True.
So forth.
I think at first, like, he thought that she was a little, crazy or something, just because, she would go on about, well, we have to stop Ares, like, on the boat, and he gives this look like, what the fuck are you talking about? But
he continues to give her that look every time she talks about Ares, right up till almost the end.
That's true. Like, okay, you keep believing that. I'm just gonna...
Right? And, and then basically at the end there where she fights her, I guess, brother, Ares, and I think that's she truly actually embraces that Wonder Woman character at that point. That's the way I sort of saw that movie, or her character developing. Yeah. It was not just developed sort of at the beginning and she carries on with it, which seems to be fairly typical of some of the other movies like Batman, Superman. They always seem to have... that's my character, that's who I am, right? So she's still developing her sense of self, I guess.
So I have some trivia things that I can talk about. Cool. So young Diana and older Diana share the same birthday.
So when you say young Diana, like the girl or the teenager?
The little girl, I think, is the one And well, they didn't really specify that in the trivia bit, but I'm pretty sure that it was whichever one is Emily. We'll figure that out later when we look through the credits again, right? Through a lot of this movie, Gal Gadot was 5 months pregnant, so they actually had to green screen her belly so that it didn't show in filming. I'm like, she kicked ass for being pregnant for so long.
That would probably explain some of the various scenes there, that she looked a little heavier set in some scenes and lots slimmer in others. Maybe that would probably explain some of that.
Well, yeah, she also did a ton of training in order to prepare for this role. So she actually amassed, I can't remember how many pounds of muscle it was, like 15 or 19 pounds of muscle, which was just unbelievable. Also, going back to the boat scene, that was all improvised.
Yeah,
believe it or not. I thought that was hilarious. I'm like, this is what I appreciate about actors, is that sometimes people will improvise a scene and the directors are like, you know what, we're going to keep that. Like, give them lots of points of intelligence for just, we're going to run with this and just do something
That was
fun.
actually really good for the director, actually, because a lot of them won't give them that freedom.
It's also cool, too, because the director and the writers and stuff, they had it so planned out. Like, they didn't cut any scenes from the movie. All the editing was just sort of trimming things, and I think they filmed the No Man's Land walk 2 different ways, and that was it. Everything else, it was like just ready to go, basically, just tighten up little pieces.
Yeah. But even that boat scene that you were talking about, Gal Gadot must have had a bit of a knowledge of the ancient Greek writings and stuff for her to come up with that on her own.
Oh, definitely.
Or at least on the research prior to the movie, anyways. Probably did that to get a bit into character, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the only other point that I have on here that I wrote down, there was a massive list on the website. It was insane. So I only just cherry picked a couple. But General Ludendorff, the whole time that we watched the movie, I'm like, I feel like this is familiar in some way. I don't pay much attention to history. It was never my big subject, but this was actually a real person. And he did support the Nazi regime. And he was authorizing the use of mustard gas and whatnot. No. So they did stick to, truth
real life
when looking at, what would actually happen for this time period. What do we want to portray? And I thought that was really interesting.
I think most movie goers, or not movie goers, but producers and stuff, are starting to realize that the general population out there can probably pick out these things and sort of backlash, shall we say, when they sort of astray from history aspects.
Absolutely.
So forth.
Yeah.
And so I think to some extent, I think that's where some of that's coming from.
Oh,
and
definitely.
Definitely making sure you have your history lines at least somewhat accurate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, we can definitely look towards like the script writers for, considering that, and then the directors for going, okay, so this is how we're going to portray this. And I really appreciated that for, everything that it became.
Mm-hmm. Should be interesting to see how, I guess, Wonder Woman fits into the new movie coming up with the Justice League. I think it is.
I'm very nervous.
And see how that goes. Whether they'll build upon her character from this movie onwards, or probably kill it.
Oh, that's a good question. It's Hollywood.
But Patty, I think the director, Patty, is either for sure working on a second one, or she's fighting to do the second one.
One of the other things that I put on the previous page was, give us more Wonder Woman, please, K, thanks, bye. In capital letters.
I don't really trust the character with anyone else right now, because it's been done poorly before. Like, no, don't ruin this good thing. Give more like this, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw a lot of potential in the Batman versus Superman when Wonder Woman character came in. Saw the potential there, and where they were going to go with it maybe was positive, and this movie definitely made it positive. So hopefully it won't take a step back.
Yeah. I mean, you can't argue with 404 million gross. Disgusting number, and I love it.
Yeah. Domestic.
Oh, yeah.
So it's even bigger worldwide.
So obviously the populace has spoken. get on with it, directors.
Well, there definitely was a lot of controversy with the release of this movie. I know in Texas there were they wanted female identifying people only going to certain screenings, and then there was big uproar about it.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah. And because Gal Gadot is, I think, an Israeli, there were certain countries that, because they are currently at war with each other, or at the time, they were like, we're not going to play this movie here.
It was definitely banned, or...
Yeah, it was banned.
The theater was sued and lost in court.
They lost?
Yeah.
Oh, too bad.
Discrimination.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I could probably see this movie not going over well in Arab countries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess final impressions and rating.
Final impression was I loved it. Want to watch it again. Definitely one of the few DC movies that I will be watching again. And my star rating would be 4.5 out of 5.
I agree. I loved every bit of this movie. It was fun. It had elements of realism. It had comedy. The costuming was great. The setting was great. I gave it a 5.
Yeah, I love this movie as well. It had some very impact scenes in it for me. Very nicely good ones. And again, I will rate it at 4.5 as well.
Excellent. So do leave your thoughts in the comments below. We have to pick. Never mind. Don't leave your comments yet. We have to pick. You do it after we pick. All right. So our next one is The Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1996. All right, so now you can leave a comment down below. What were your thoughts on Wonder Woman? Do hit the like button, give us that thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button as well if you want to get more of our videos, and tap that bell because now we have like 50 million things we have to do to be part of the early notification squad and get notified right away when we do upload. All right.
Bye. I'll try.
Entertain me.